My name is Callista, and I once believed in fairy tales. I thought love was written in candlelit dinners, stolen glances across crowded rooms, and promises whispered under soft sheets. I believed it when he told me I was his future. I believed it when he knelt down with a diamond ring that sparkled like forever. But what I did not know was that forever came with conditions. That behind his charming smile and carefully polished words, there was a plan I was never meant to see. The night I discovered that he was trying to cancel our wedding, not just postpone, not just reschedule, but erase me completely, I felt something inside me shatter. Yet in the sharpness of that pain, another feeling was born. Not despair. Not weakness. But clarity. He thought he could discard me quietly, as if I were an accessory he no longer needed. But what he failed to realize was that I had already begun noticing the cracks in his perfect mask. And I wasn't going to walk away. I wasn't going to let him cancel me. If he wanted to cancel our wedding, then I would cancel his image, his reputation, the very foundation he stood on. This is not a story of heartbreak. This is a story of revenge. I first met Damien at a winter fundraiser downtown. The ballroom was all glass chandeliers, velvet drapes, and the sound of violins echoing through the air. I remember shivering slightly in my navy gown, the air conditioning too sharp against my skin, and then his voice. "You don't belong on the sidelines," he said with a half smile, stepping close. It was a line I know that now, but at that moment it wrapped around me like silk. I laughed, a little embarrassed, and he held my gaze as if I were the only person worth looking at. Damien was magnetic in that way. He could make anyone feel chosen. He was already building a reputation as a visionary entrepreneur, someone with both brilliance and charisma. To the outside world he was a man rising, unstoppable. To me, in those first months, he was warmth, attention, and devotion. He didn't just court me. He showcased me. At dinner parties he would hold my hand across the table, saying, "This is the woman who makes everything possible." He remembered my favorite wine, my favorite songs, the little details that made me think, "This man sees me." When he proposed, it was cinematic. A secluded garden lit by hundreds of lanterns. A small quartet hidden in the shadows. He dropped to one knee, held out a ring that seemed to trap starlight inside it, and asked me to marry him. Tears blurred my eyes as I whispered yes. For me it was love. For him, I would later learn, it was strategy. I was not just his fiancée. I was his statement piece, proof of stability, the final touch to complete his curated image. And as suddenly as he had given me the role, he decided to strip it away. But Damien underestimated me. He thought my love would make me blind. He thought I would beg or crumble when he tried to cancel the wedding. He thought wrong. Because I had already begun paying attention. To his late-night calls that went quiet when I walked into the room. To his colleagues who exchanged strange glances when I was introduced. To the way he tightened his jaw every time someone asked about forever. The mask was slipping. And behind it I could see him for what he really was. And if Damien thought he could erase me quietly, he hadn't yet learned that I was more dangerous than silence. The very first sign of betrayal came wrapped in silk paper and gold lettering. An invitation, one I was never supposed to see. The envelope was thick, its weight heavier than it should have been. I found it on Damien's desk late one evening, while he was in the shower. Cream paper. Gold lettering. My first thought was that it was another business gala. He was always invited to those. But when I pulled the card out and read the embossed words, my blood turned cold. "You are cordially invited to celebrate Damien Ward's new venture." New venture. No mention of me. No mention of a wedding. The date? The exact weekend that was supposed to be ours. The night when I should have been walking down the aisle in lace and vows. Instead, he was planning a launch party. For himself. Without me. I remember standing there, the water from his shower humming in the background, my hands trembling as I held the invitation. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. This wasn't a rescheduling. This wasn't a delay. This was him replacing me with a performance, erasing me with a spectacle. When Damien stepped out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist, he smiled casually as though nothing in the world was wrong. "What's for dinner?" he asked, like we were any other couple winding down. I didn't answer. I placed the invitation on the counter between us. His smile faltered just slightly, but I saw it. Flicker. A shadow in his eyes. Where did you get that? He asked, his voice lower now. It was on your desk. I whispered, my throat dry. The same weekend as our wedding, Damien. What is this? He reached for the card, but I didn't let go. For a moment our fingers brushed, locked in a silent tug-of-war. Then he sighed and straightened, that polished charm sliding back over his face like armor. It's just business, he said smoothly. The wedding can wait. Sis can't. The wedding can wait. His words cut sharper than glass. I felt my knees weaken, but I forced myself to stand tall. So you're canceling us for a party? Not canceling, he corrected. Postponing. Timing is everything, Callista. You wouldn't understand. But I did understand. I understood that I was not his priority. I understood that I was not his partner but a placeholder. And worst of all, I understood that he believed I would accept it quietly because love would make me obedient. That night, while he poured himself a drink and scrolled through his phone, I sat alone in our bedroom, staring at the ring on my finger. The same ring that once felt like a promise now felt like a chain. I should have cried. I should have screamed. But instead I felt an odd calm. As though my heart had hardened into stone. If he thought this was the end of me, then he had no idea who he was dealing with. Because I wasn't going to fight for the wedding. I was going to fight for the truth. Days later, the betrayal revealed itself in sharper colors. Damien started avoiding conversations about venues, caterers, guest lists. When my mother called excited about dress fittings, he brushed it off, saying, "Tell her to relax. Nothing's urgent." I watched as he built his launch party piece by piece, menus, lighting schemes, press lists, all with the kind of passion he once pretended to have for me. And I realized, this wasn't about business timing. This was deliberate. A calculated move to rewrite the narrative. Damien didn't want a wedding. He wanted an empire. And in that empire, there was no room for a wife who could overshadow him. But he made one fatal mistake. He underestimated me. The first proof I gathered was not words, not rumors, but a photograph. One that Damien never intended me to see. The photograph came to me by accident. Or maybe fate. I was meeting my friend Marissa for coffee, hoping to breathe outside of the suffocating silence Damien and I had been living in. She was scrolling through her phone, showing me pictures from a recent charity dinner she had attended. "There's Damien," she said casually, flicking her finger across the screen. My stomach dropped. He was in a crisp black suit, perfectly tailored, glass of champagne in hand. The room was full of executives, all smiles and applause. But it wasn't the crowd that froze me. It was the woman beside him. Tall. Elegant. Wearing a dress the color of wine. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, the way a woman only does when she belongs there. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice calm but my nails digging crescents into my palm. Marissa frowned. "I don't know. She was with him all night, though. They looked close." I forced a smile, thanked her for the photos, and excused myself. The moment I was alone, my chest felt like it might cave in. It wasn't just a party replacing my wedding. It was another woman. Another lie. That night, Damien came home late. His tie was loosened, his smile smug. I didn't mention the photo. Instead, I asked, "How was your night?" "Work," he said, his answer too quick, too practiced. I nodded, tucking my fury behind my teeth. That was the beginning. From that moment, I became an investigator in my own life. I started with his calendar. He was careless, leaving reminders on his phone. Dinner with V appeared on a Wednesday night. Meeting at beachside on a Friday. V. The woman in the photograph. I copied everything into my own notebook, every appointment, every suspicious gap in his schedule. Then came the receipts. Damien was meticulous about his credit card statements, but he underestimated me. I had access to our joint account, and I saw the charges. Luxury restaurants, hotel lounges, flowers delivered to an unfamiliar address. Each entry was another knife. But I didn't let myself bleed. Instead, I documented everything page after page. And then came the emails. He always left his laptop open, confident in my loyalty. But loyalty doesn't survive betrayal. I waited until he was asleep, his breathing heavy beside me, and I slid into his inbox. The messages were short, coded, but clear enough. "You looked incredible tonight. Can't wait for the weekend." She still has no idea. My stomach twisted, but my hands kept moving. I printed them, slipped them into a folder, built my case piece by piece. The hardest part wasn't finding proof. It was living with it. Waking up each morning beside the man who looked me in the eyes and lied, while I carried his truth like a loaded weapon in my purse. Some nights I wanted to scream. Some mornings I wanted to throw the evidence in his face. But revenge isn't built on rage. It's built on patience. I reminded myself of that every time I looked at the ring on my finger. The ring he wanted to exchange for a stage. The ring that would one day shine brighter in his ruin than it ever did in his promise. The turning point came one Saturday. Damien claimed he was traveling out of town for a conference, but I already knew the truth. His suitcase was too light, his smile too rehearsed. I followed him. From a distance, I watched as he drove not to the airport, but to the lake house. Our lake house, or at least that's what he always called it. When I parked far down the road and crept closer, my suspicions hardened into fact. Through the wide windows I saw them. Damien and V. Her hand brushing his cheek, his lips brushing hers. The house that once echoed with our laughter now carried the sound of betrayal. I took pictures. Each click of the camera was a nail in his coffin. As I crouched in the shadows outside that house, phone in hand, the flash accidentally went off, illuminating the night for a split second. Inside, Damien's head turned sharply toward the window. I did not run when the flash lit the window. I froze, breath thin the way deer do when a branch snaps. Inside, Damien moved toward the glass, hand raised like a visor. He peered into the dark. I pressed myself against the cedar siding and counted to 20 slow, steady, one heartbeat for each number. Then he stepped back, said something to the woman, and pulled the curtains closed. Silence returned, heavy as a blanket. I exhaled through my nose, slid the phone into my pocket, and retreated down the slope to my car. The gravel under my shoes sounded louder than it was. Betrayal makes every sound feel like an alarm. On the drive home I made one promise to myself. I would not be reckless. Rage wants a stage. Justice wants a plan. I called Marissa first. She answered on the second ring. Tell me, she said, no hello, no preface, only a friend's direct line to the emergency. I have proof, I said. Pictures. Emails. Dates. I need you to be my witness. Say what you need, she replied. I am with you. Next, I texted my cousin Jonah, the one who turns numbers into confessions. He is a forensic accountant, patient, precise, allergic to drama and addicted to data. I sent a single sentence. Are you free to look at some statements? He sent back. Bring everything. I will make coffee. Then I scrolled to a contact I rarely call, because I respect her time too much to waste it. Lila. Family attorney. Calm as stone. She has eyes that cut through fog and a voice that could narrate a storm without raising an octave. I typed. I think my fiancé is attempting to shift assets before canceling our wedding. Can you meet? Her reply came in under a minute. Yes. Tomorrow morning. Bring documents. Do not confront. I slept 3 hours, if sleep is the word for lying still while your brain spreads papers on the floor of your skull. At dawn I pulled every folder I had built and put them into a single hard case. Receipts. Calendar screenshots. Photographs from the lake house. I placed the engagement ring on top of the stack. A small crown on a pile of evidence. Lila's office smelled like paper and lemon oil. She listened without interrupting, her pencil moving only to draw clean boxes beside each point. When I finished, she tapped the eraser on the page. You have what most clients wish they had when they walk in, she said. A timeline. Authenticated artifacts. No speculation. What happens if he tries to cancel the wedding and keep the deposits? I asked. We freeze the movement, she said. We send preservation notices to vendors. We request copies of all contracts in which you are named. We open a separate file with the venue to ensure your rights are protected. And we do it now. She drafted 3 letters while I watched, her hands moving like a pianist's. Preservation of evidence. Request for accounting. Notice of potential misrepresentation. The words were clean. They carried steel. Also, she said, change your password on the joint email and enable forwarding for any vendor correspondence that mentions you. He cannot argue you were out of the loop if the loop sits in your inbox. From Lila I drove to Jonah's. He had already cleared his dining table, leaving space for the slow assembly of the truth. We laid out statements side by side. Here, he said, tapping a pattern with a capped pen. Every time there is a charge at the hotel lounge, there is a matching cash withdrawal 2 hours later. Small bills, flowers, ride shares. It is a rhythm. And rhythms tell stories. He highlighted 3 charges that landed on the same dates as the work dinners. Then he pulled out a single thread I had not seen. This account, he said, pointing to a credit card I rarely use, shows an authorized user addition last month. Who? I asked. The word made of ice. He turned the page to the authorization form. The signature was Damien's. The shipping address was not ours. The last name on the user was only an initial, but I did not need the rest. V. We will have the bank log the addition and record the timestamp, Jonah said. You will not accuse him today. You will collect this quietly. When the time comes, we will present it in sequence. I want to scream, I said. You will, he replied. Later. In a room where the echo is a verdict. By late afternoon, Lila's letters were sent, and a new lockbox at the bank held copies of everything. I placed one flash drive inside a sealed envelope with my name across the flap, and gave another to Marissa. If anything happens to me, give this to Lila, I said. She nodded, face set, hand steady. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and built my counterplan. If Damien wanted a stage, he would get one, but not the one he booked. He had cancelled a wedding and replaced it with a gala to polish his reputation. Fine. I would bring polish remover. I listed the players. The venue manager, Rosa, who had been kind during our tours and had slipped me her direct number with the whisper, "Call if you need to breathe." The charity's communications director, who worshipped transparency more than applause. 2 of Damien's executives who had daughters my age and looked at me with the cautious kindness of men teaching themselves how to listen. And V herself, who, if she was the woman I thought she was, would not hide when the lights came up. I called Rosa first. I am not asking you to break laws, I said. I am asking you to follow your own. I explained the letters. I explained the timeline. I asked for one thing. A slot in the gratitude remarks Damien had planned for himself. I cannot promise a podium, she said. But I can promise the microphone will not ignore you. Next, I emailed the communications director a note titled Accuracy. I told her I had materials related to a honoree's conduct that may affect the integrity of the evening. I did not send the packet. I told her to expect it the morning of the gala. Timing matters. Truth lands harder when the room is already seated. Finally, I set a trap for V, not to shame her, but to place her where the facts could find her. I created a public post on the charity's page praising women who show up for other women. It was true. It was also bait. Within an hour, V liked the post. In her profile was a photo at the lakehouse dock, sun on water, Damien's shadow at the edge of the frame. I wrote a single comment. Beautiful place. I have been there too. I added a small heart. Not a fight. A thread. She replied with a single word. Same. The plan took shape in 3 layers. Legal. Logistical. Theatrical. Legal to hold the ground. Logistical to stop the spin. Theatrical to make sure the truth did not whisper. The next morning, as I reviewed the packet one more time, an email arrived from an address I did not recognize. It held a single attachment, a photo from inside the lake house. Damien and V on the couch, his arm around her shoulders, his mouth near her ear. The sender had written, "You do not know me, but you should have this. He is not careful." I stared at the image until it stopped blurring. Then I saved it to the drive and printed it twice. At noon my phone rang. Rosa. Small update, she said. Your fiancé just tried to remove your name from the gala RSVP list. My hand tightened around the receiver. And I told him the list is closed, she said, voice smooth, and that the microphone has already been tested. A beat of silence. Then the softest smile in her tone. See you on Saturday. That evening, as the sun dropped behind our building, Damien walked in holding a sleek white envelope. He set it on the table like a gift and said, "About Saturday. There is something you should know." He slid the envelope across the table like a ring box. I did not touch it. He wanted me to ask. I made him speak. About Saturday, Damien said, easing into his performance voice. The guest list changed. The donor tier changed. We need to look unified. He tapped the envelope. I had my counsel draft a short statement. You will love it. It is gracious. I opened it. 3 sentences sat on heavy paper. Due to personal commitments, my fiancé will not attend the gala. We remain excited for our future. Please direct all questions to me. No signature line for me. No space for my voice. A deletion disguised as courtesy. I folded the paper once, twice, and set it beside the salt. No, I said. He laughed softly. It is already sent to the printer. Then the printer will learn a new word, I replied. Revoke. He studied me, trying to calculate how firm I was. You have been distant, he said. You are tired. I am protecting you. I am awake, I said. I am protecting the truth. He rolled his shoulders, that smooth unwind that means he is switching tactics. Fine. Where the silver? Smile. Let me handle the remarks. No, I repeated. Calm. Flat. Final. He picked up the envelope again, tapped it against his palm and angled his head. Are you angry? The way he said it turned the word into pathology. I am precise, I said. He held my gaze. Something in him did a quick inventory. He did not find the old softness. He dropped the envelope in the trash. Then be ready, he said. Saturday is important. When the door closed behind him, I took the envelope out of the bin and slid it into my file. Paper tells on people. I went back to the plan. Layer 1 legal was already in motion. Lila's letters had hit inboxes. 2 vendors had replied confirming a freeze on refunds and credits until both parties consented. The venue had acknowledged preservation. The charity had confirmed receipt of potential conflict materials. Good. Layer 2 logistical needed muscle. I built a clean site behind a private link. I titled it simply, Attribution. It opened with a timeline bar you could slide with a finger. Each dot opened a dated item. Receipt, calendar screenshot, bank authorization, hotel photo, the lake house image that stranger had sent. Each file was watermarked with the time it was created and the words shared by Callista with counsel on, followed by the date. Verification sits better than accusation in the stomach. Next, I created a mailer set to send at 8:15 on gala night. It had 3 lines, no adjectives. Per counsel guidance. Sharing documentation relevant to tonight's honoree. Materials are time-stamped and authenticated. Link below. Recipients. The charity board, the communications director, the master of ceremonies, Rosa, and 3 reporters who cover philanthropy and have a habit of asking the one hard question when everyone else is posing for pictures. Then I printed a small stack of wallet cards. On one side, a QR code to the site. On the other, 5 words. Ask who benefits from silence. I slipped 10 cards into my clutch. I gave 10 to Marissa. Only if it gets ugly, I said. She nodded. Layer 3 theatrical is where people go wrong. They chase spectacle. I wanted clarity. I outlined a simple scene. Arrive on time. Look like the fiancé in every photo Damien ever posted. Wait for his remark slot. Step forward when he says the words gratitude and future. Thank the charity first. Then say one sentence. The future he describes includes another woman, a second set of keys, and money taken from accounts with my name on them. Stop. Let the room breathe. Hand the microphone to the communications director. Walk away. It would not be a monologue. It would be a handoff. Truth should not depend on the betrayed to carry it alone. I rehearsed the line out loud until it lost its tremor. Then I rehearsed the walk away. You do not know how heavy your legs are until you plan to leave a room you were taught to stay in. Before bed, I sent one more message, this time to V. I am attending the gala, I wrote. If you plan to stand next to him, I would like you to see what I will show the room. I do not want you surprised. I did not attach the link. I watched the typing bubble appear and vanish. After a full minute, her reply came. Are you trying to scare me? No, I wrote. I am trying to give you a chance to choose where you stand when the lights are up. No answer. That was an answer. The next morning, Jonah called. Bank confirmed the authorized user addition, he said. Timestamp is 7 minutes after a reservation was made at the lake house. I have both logs. Can the bank block new withdrawals? I asked. Yes, he said. They already did. Good, I said, and for the first time since the window flash, I felt the floor under me. At noon, Marissa and I met Rosa at the venue. She walked us through the ballroom like a general surveying terrain. Podium here. Lights there. Your table is 3 rows back on the aisle. She lowered her voice. And the audio engineer has been briefed. If you step forward and say your name, the mic will stay on. I touched her arm. Thank you. She shook her head. Do not thank me. Thank the policy. We follow our own rules here. Back home, I set out the dress I had chosen before cancellations and secrets. It was the one my mother loved, soft navy that made me feel like a night sky you could tell the truth under. I placed the clutch beside it, cards inside, phone charged, link synced across a drive Lila controls. As dusk broke on the day before the gala, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The transcript appeared. Callista, a woman's voice said. We have not met. They call me V. Do not make a scene. You will embarrass yourself. He will never forgive you. I listened to the message twice. Then I hit save and forwarded it to Lila with a single line. She is real. Lila replied. And recorded. The night was quiet. Too quiet if you believe in omens. I brewed tea. I did not drink it. At 11, Damien texted from the other room, as if we were teenagers in separate worlds. Car at 6. Wear the silver. I typed car at 6. I will wear what tells the truth. He sent a thumbs up. He thought he had won the language. He had no idea the room had already learned a new word. At 5:59, the elevator doors opened to the lobby. The car was waiting. A second car idled behind it. V stepped out of that one in a white dress that looked like a dare. She looped her arm through Damien's. He looked at me, smiled, and said, Ready. The hotel lobby smelled of lilies and polished marble. My heels clicked against the floor, each step sounding louder than the one before. 6 o'clock sharp, just as Damien had texted. The black car waited at the curb, its door held open by a driver who looked carefully trained not to look at me at all. But behind that sleek sedan, another idled with its headlights low and humming. The rear door opened, and there she was, V. Her name was Vanessa, though I had only seen it in logs and signatures. Tonight, she stepped out like a star who had been waiting for her cue. A white dress, satin draped just enough to whisper elegance, bold enough to suggest ownership. She carried no bag. She carried only herself, her arm curved, waiting. Damien gave it to her. His hand slid easily into hers. Then he turned to me with a smile so thin it could cut glass. Ready? He said, as if I were his companion, not the woman he had written out of a printed statement. I inhaled. Slow. Deliberate. Inside my clutch, my fingers brushed the cards with their black and white command. Ask who benefits from silence. The weight steadied me. Yes, I said. The driver for Damien's car hesitated. 2 women. 1 man. 2 cars. A triangle that did not fit into the neat circle Damien thought he had drawn. I will meet you there, I told him. My voice was calm, not sharp. Calm unnerves a liar. Suit yourself, he said, guiding Vanessa into the back seat. He ducked in beside her, pulling the door closed with the efficiency of a man who never doubted the locks. I walked to the second car. The driver there, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper jawline, opened the door. Callista? She asked quietly. Yes. From Rosa, she said, nodding once. We'll be on your clock, not his. The relief almost bent my knees. Rosa had sent a second driver. A shadow plan in case Damien pulled a pivot. I slid into the back seat. The engine purred, steady as a promise. As the city lights blurred past the window, I opened my phone. A notification blinked at the top. Scheduled mailer queued for 8:15. I checked the link. Active. Then I read the voicemail from Vanessa again, the one she had left the night before. Do not make a scene. You will embarrass yourself. She had no idea that scenes are not accidents. They are scripts. When we arrived, the ballroom gleamed with chandeliers, each crystal a drop of fire. The charity banners hung proud against velvet drapes. Waiters balanced trays of champagne. Music floated like a net to catch wandering conversations. Damien and Vanessa walked in first. Heads turned. She sparkled. He glowed. Together they looked rehearsed, like an unveiling. I entered 2 minutes later. Not beside them. Behind them. Alone. Heads turned again. Whispers followed. The space between their arrival and mine was small, but it carried weight. People noticed. Rosa spotted me instantly. She crossed the room and kissed my cheek. "Your seat is still yours," she murmured. 3 rows back aisle. "The mic is live. Don't rush." I nodded. My heart raced, but my face stayed still. At 7:45 the program began. A host welcomed the donors, praised the cause, listed the silent auction items. Applause scattered like pebbles across a pond. Then it was Damien's turn. He walked to the podium with Vanessa still on his arm. My jaw locked. But then she stayed behind, 2 steps off to the side, hands folded. A shadow queen beside her king. "Ladies and gentlemen," Damien began, his voice smooth as silk, "we are gathered tonight not only to celebrate generosity, but to affirm the future. Gratitude binds us. Vision guides us. And I." He glanced at me deliberately, like a teacher daring a student. I could never do this without the people who believe in me. The audience nodded, polite, eager. Cameras flashed. My pulse thundered. I reached into my clutch. 1 card between my fingers. The QR code gleamed under the chandeliers. "And so tonight I stand before you humbled, grateful and proud to step into a future filled with promise." He had chosen the word. Future. The cue I had written for myself. I rose from my seat. The rustle of fabric caught attention before I even moved down the aisle. I felt eyes tracking me, confusion swelling. The host blinked. Damien's smile faltered. Vanessa's lips parted, but no sound came. Each step I took was deliberate. The mic waited. The lights shifted. The plan was in motion. I reached the podium. My hand touched the microphone. The room went silent, as if the chandeliers themselves held their breath. I said, "My name is Callista." And every camera turned toward me. The microphone hummed faintly under my touch, a living current waiting to carry my words into every corner of the glittering ballroom. The chandeliers blazed brighter than ever, each crystal refracting sparks like judgment itself. The faces turned toward me. Donors, colleagues, strangers who only knew Damien's polished charm. Some looked confused, others curious. Damien's own smile froze, brittle and paper-thin. "My name is Callista," I said again, steady, clear. The sound carried, sharp against the hush. "And I have been silent long enough." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vanessa shifted at the edge of the stage, her perfect poise unraveling. Damien stepped forward, his hand raised like he might reclaim the microphone by sheer authority. "Callista, this isn't your time." I didn't move. "You're right," I said. "This isn't my time. This is our time. The time when lies are no longer fed to generous hearts under the disguise of leadership." Gasps. Whispers turned sharp, slicing the quiet. My fingers brushed the stack of cards inside my clutch. I drew the first one and held it up. White, bold black letters across it. Where did the money go? I placed it on the podium. The cameras snapped like firecrackers. Damien's face drained. He forced a laugh, too loud, too thin. "This is inappropriate. Please let's." The next card. "Who signs the contracts?" I slid it across the podium, each movement deliberate. The words glowed under the stage lights, impossible to ignore. The crowd shifted, leaning forward, drawn closer by the gravity of words that demanded answers. Damien's hand shot out for the microphone. I pulled it closer. "Did you tell them, Damien?" My voice was calm, almost conversational. "Did you tell them whose name you put on the contracts while you signed away promises? Did you tell them who has been profiting while donors thought they were supporting a cause?" The audience stirred. A woman in the front row frowned, flipping through the glossy program. Someone whispered, "Is this true?" Damien's jaw clenched. "Enough. You're making a scene." "Yes," I said louder now, "because truth deserves a stage." I tapped my phone. The link went live. Notifications chimed across the room as donors checked their devices. A flood of screenshots, bank transfers, emails, all queued, all timed to this moment. Each one undeniable. Gasps grew louder, sharper. This can't be real, someone muttered. Another voice rose. She has proof. Vanessa stepped forward, her face pale. Damien, what is this? His mask cracked. He hissed at her, forgetting the microphone was live. Not here. Not now. The room erupted. Whispers turned to accusations. Guests leaned toward one another, pointing at their screens at me, at Damien. The hum of conversation swelled into a storm. I raised my voice above it. He mocked me for believing. He mocked all of us. He called it ambition when it was greed. He called it leadership when it was theft. He called me too emotional. The crowd froze. That phrase landed like a stone. His words, his dismissal, spoken back into the air he could not control. I stared at him. If emotion means fighting for truth, then yes, I am guilty. Guilty of refusing to let his lies stand. Applause. Not all at once, but a spark here, a hand there, until it grew. A steady rhythm against the marble floors. Damien's face twisted. He tried to shout over it, his voice desperate. You don't understand, she's twisting everything. But the wave had shifted. The audience wasn't looking at him anymore. They were looking at me. At the woman who stood firm, calm, unflinching. I held up one last card. Ask who benefits from silence. Then I set it down flat on the podium and stepped back. The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. Damien's chest rose and fell fast, his composure fractured. Vanessa's eyes darted wildly, as if searching for an exit. The donors' gazes were sharp, suspicious, condemning. And in that silence everyone realized. His image was already broken. I closed the microphone with a deliberate touch and said, "The truth is yours now. Do with it what he never did, respect it." The crowd's attention swung back to Damien, and the moment of reckoning loomed closer with every tick of the clock. The air in the ballroom fractured like glass. What had been polite chatter and the clink of champagne flutes only minutes earlier was now a storm of voices, rising, overlapping, colliding. I could feel the weight of every eye. No longer dazzled by Damien's polished suit or rehearsed smile, but sharpened, furious, hungry for answers. Damien's chest heaved. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him, though the stage light still gilded his shoulders. He tried to summon that familiar smirk, but it trembled, half-born, a broken mask. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "what you've heard is a fabrication. This woman has a personal grudge." But his words were drowned. A man in the back stood up, holding his phone high, the glow of the screen bright in the dim room. "These emails are real," he shouted. "They're all time-stamped. And the transfers?" He shook his head in disbelief. "You funneled donations into your personal accounts." Gasps. A collective shift of the crowd. The applause that had sparked earlier now turned into a different kind of rhythm, sharp, stinging murmurs, questions fired like arrows. How much did he take? Was she in on it? Fingers pointed, eyes narrowed. People turned to one another with outrage. Vanessa, who had been standing half-shadowed near the curtain, finally stepped forward. Her perfect image cracked. Her lipstick seemed too bright against a face drained of color. "Damien," she whispered, but the microphone caught it, carried it across the ballroom. "Tell me this isn't true." His head snapped toward her, eyes blazing. "Not here. Not in front of them." That sentence was his undoing. Not in front of them. A confession wrapped in denial. The crowd roared with fury. A woman in the second row stood, trembling with indignation. "I gave $10,000 to this foundation," she said, her voice breaking. "Was that money part of your vacations? Your suits?" Her words broke the last fragile thread. Donors pulled out their phones, scrolling, confirming, showing their neighbors. The evidence I had uploaded spread like fire in a dry forest. The whole room became a jury, and the verdict was almost sealed. Damien slammed his hand on the podium, desperate, sweating now under the brilliance of the lights. "You're all letting her manipulate you. She's just bitter. She wanted the spotlight." I took a step closer, my heels echoing across the marble floor. I did not raise my voice, I did not need to. If spotlight means refusing to let people be robbed by a man they trusted, then yes. I wanted it. And now it's yours. The room erupted again, but this time with a wave of agreement. Claps, shouts, calls for investigation, for accountability. The donors were not silent anymore. They demanded answers. Damien spun toward Vanessa, his voice dropping low, frantic, but the microphone betrayed him again. You were supposed to keep the contracts safe. How did she get them? The crowd inhaled collectively. Vanessa's face twisted with shock, shame, rage. She staggered back, shaking her head violently. Do not put this on me, Damien. You signed them. You made me complicit. Do not you dare. It was chaos now. Guests abandoned their tables, forming clusters, arguing, demanding clarity. The foundation's board members, who had been seated together, stood slowly, their expressions carved from stone. One of them, an older man with a commanding presence, pointed a finger straight at Damien. We will be calling an emergency session. Effective immediately. Damien's shoulders collapsed. The fight drained out of him in slow motion, like air leaving a punctured balloon. He turned to me, fury and pleading warring in his eyes. Callista, please. You don't know what this will do. I held his gaze. Yes, I do. For a heartbeat, silence returned. Just one. Then another voice cut through, louder than all the rest. A journalist. She had slipped in with a camera crew, unnoticed in the chaos. Her microphone was suddenly in his face. Mr. Ashford, will you comment on the allegations that you embezzled funds from your own foundation? Damien froze. The cameras turned, lenses hungry, merciless. Vanessa tried to shield her face, but the flashbulbs found her. The board members clustered together like vultures circling. The crowd pressed closer. And me? I stepped back, far enough to let the truth devour him, close enough to watch every piece of his carefully built empire fall. The ballroom was no longer his stage. It was his cage. Damien opened his mouth, searching for words that might save him. But before he could speak, the board's chairman lifted a hand and declared, "Until a full investigation is complete, you are suspended, effective now." The room thundered, and Damien's legacy cracked wide open. At sunrise, the ballroom felt like a bad dream, but the headlines were awake. My phone lit the dark bedroom like a lighthouse. Push alerts stacked on the lock screen. Charity star suspended amid fund scandal. Donors demand answers. Fiancé turns whistleblower. They used my name. They used his face. I sat up and let the quiet settle. No victory music. Just the tick of the wall clock and the distant rumble of a city that had already moved on to new coffee and new outrage. I made tea. I watched steam rise and vanish. Then I started answering the people who needed answers. First, the board. They sent a formal note at 7. Internal audit opened. Outside firm retained. The foundation accounts were frozen. I replied with the index one had built over weeks. Folder by folder. Email threads. Wire confirmations. Vendor statements. I did not add adjectives. I did not need to. Next, the donors. Dozens had messaged. Some were furious. Some were grief-struck. Most were both. I wrote one careful paragraph and sent it to each of them. You have a right to the truth. The documents you saw are authentic. The board has begun an independent review. Your donations will be accounted for. Thank you for insisting on integrity. Then I stopped typing and breathed. It is easy to drown in other people's emotions and call it service. At 8, the chief of staff from the board called. His voice had the solid tone of a man who reads bylaws for comfort. We will need you for a recorded statement, he said. This afternoon if possible. I will be there, I said. We will also need your devices for a forensic image, he added. Standard practice. Chain of custody. Understood, I said. I had already backed up everything to a drive with a label no one could misread. At 9, the journalist who had put a microphone under Damien's chin last night sent a request. A live segment. Morning show. Bright couch. Soft questions that become sharp when the camera light clicks on. I said no. I was not the story. The system was. The review was. She wrote back, disappointed but respectful. I closed my inbox and left it closed. By 10, the charity's hotline had a script. I knew because a volunteer forwarded it. We are committed to transparency. We will contact you within 5 business days with an update. It was not enough. It was a start. Then came the call I knew would come. An unknown number. The same city code as Damien's law firm. I let it ring twice before answering. Ms. Vale, a brisk voice said. This is counsel for Mr. Ashford. We demand that you retract your statements and remove the documents you disseminated. You have defamed our client and interfered with his contracts. No, I said. You leave us no choice, she replied. A cease and desist will arrive by courier. We have also filed a police report. Unauthorized access. Data theft. The line clicked dead. I watched my calm like a fragile thing and guarded it. This was the play. Make the truth loud, then call it a crime. I texted the Foundation's general counsel a summary. She called within minutes. We expected this, she said. Do not respond. Our outside firm will handle communications. Also, the digital forensics team has already verified that your access was authorized. Your permissions were intact. Timestamps match your role. What about his report? I asked. It will fold, she said. He will try to buy time with noise. Let him. At noon I walked to the board's office. No cameras followed. The world had other storms to chase. Inside, I sat in a room with a glass wall and a single fern that looked like it had survived multiple leadership changes. A court reporter set up a small machine and folded her hands. The outside investigator asked me to state my name for the record. I did. Then I told the story one more time. Not like a speech. Like a map. When it was done, the investigator asked, "Is there anything you regret about how you brought this forward?" "I regret that I needed to," I said. "I do not regret the timing. I do not regret the light." He nodded. "That will read well later." "Truth reads well on its own," I said, and we both almost smiled. I handed over my laptop and my phone for imaging. Chain of custody seals clicked shut like small doors. They gave me a loaner device and a paper receipt with thick black boxes for signatures. Everything was plain. Everything was careful. Care is its own kind of power when a man has made chaos his tool. Outside, the wind had teeth. I pulled my coat close and walked toward the river. My phone vibrated in my pocket with the borrowed number. A text from Vanessa. "I need to talk. Not to fight. To fix what I can." We met in a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and apology. She arrived without the armor. No lashes. No lacquer. She looked younger and older at once. "I did not know it was this bad," she said as soon as she Saturday. I knew he blurred lines. I told myself it was for the greater good. I told myself you were dramatic. "I was accurate," I said. She nodded. "I want to cooperate," she said. "I have copies of contracts he kept out of the Foundation's system. He used a private cloud. I can show you." "Show the investigator," I said. "Not me." "I will," she said. She hesitated. "Do you hate me?" "I do not spend hate on people who can learn," I said. "Use this to learn." She cried. Not loud. Not long. Just enough for the mask to wash fully away. When she left, she looked steady. That was not my gift. That was her choice. By late afternoon the courier came. A heavy envelope. Letterhead that screamed importance. The cease and desist was longer than some novels. I handed it to the outside firm with a subject line that said only received. They replied with a single sentence. "Thank you. We will respond." 5. My mother called. She had watched the clip on repeat until it stopped feeling like her daughter and started feeling like a movie. "I am proud of you," she said. "Not for catching him. For staying kind." Kind. The word landed like a warm coat on cold skin. Kindness had not felt like the point. Still I wore it. At 6, a bank officer left a voicemail with careful phrasing. "We need to verify some activity on a joint account." Joint account. I did not have one with Damien. I called back. The officer read the last 4 digits and the opening date. My name was on it. The signature on the form looked like my name if written by a stranger in a hurry. The deposits were transfers from the Foundation labeled as reimbursements. The withdrawals were cash. Forgery. Laundered through my invented consent. Heat rose under my skin, a righteous clean flame. "Freeze it," I said. "Send the paperwork to the investigator and to the board's general counsel. I will come by in the morning to give a written statement." "We will require identification," he said. "You will have it," I replied. After I hung up, another text arrived. An unknown number again. "You made this bigger than it had to be. Walk it back and I will fix the rest." No signature. He did not need one. Damien always loved the illusion of control. Even now amid ash he tried to breathe life into a throne that no longer existed. I typed one sentence. I do not negotiate with lies. Then I deleted it. Silence can be louder. Night fell fast. The city turned to mirrors and glass. I stood by the window and watched myself in the reflection. Not triumphant. Not broken. Whole. Then a new message buzzed the loaner phone. The outside investigator. We have located a second ledger. Offsite. Places you as a beneficiary by forged consent. We will need you present when we execute the warrant at 9 tomorrow. Can you join? I stared at the screen. The trap was bigger than I thought. He had tried to make me his alibi and his accomplice at once. Yes, I typed. I will be there. At 9 tomorrow we would walk into the private storage unit where Damien hid the truth. The warrant was signed. The team was ready. If the second ledger matched the bank account, his last defense would die in fluorescent light. And if there was more, if he had planned a deeper frame, then I would have to clear my name in real time with cameras waiting at the door. The morning came with no ceremony, no fanfare. Just the cold hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of dust and metal. The storage unit was in an industrial park by the river. Rows of identical gray doors locked with brass. The investigator, the forensic accountant, 2 officers, and I stood outside number 74. My hands were steady, though my chest felt like it carried a live wire. The officer clipped the lock. The metal clanged like a judge's gavel. When the door rolled up, a rush of stale air escaped. Inside were neat boxes stacked to the ceiling. Too neat. Damien's arrogance lived in order. We began to sift. Each box was labeled in his tight handwriting. Consulting. Donor relations. Events. In the 4th row under miscellaneous, we found it. A black binder thick with plastic sleeves. A second ledger. The accountant flipped it open. Line after line. Transfers. My name. My supposed signature. Each entry crafted to pull me into his fraud. If no one had known the truth, I would have been branded as his partner in crime, the woman who siphoned donations with a smile. This is clear forgery, the accountant said. The handwriting expert will confirm, but even a layman can see the strokes are different. The investigator nodded. Chain of custody, he said, and sealed the binder into a clear bag. I stood there looking at the boxes of false order. I thought of the years Damien had spent building not just a reputation but a scaffolding of lies to hold it up. He had built a house on sand and tried to make me part of the foundation. Now all of it was collapsing in daylight. By noon the news broke again. This time not through whispers or accusations, but through the official voice of the board. They issued a statement confirming the discovery of forged documents and fraudulent accounts. They named Damien directly. They suspended him indefinitely and referred everything to law enforcement. The headlines changed tone. Whistleblower cleared. Foundation chair accused of forgery. Charity fraud scandal deepens. His empire turned to rubble overnight. And Damien himself? He tried to vanish. The firm announced his resignation, to focus on personal matters. But resignation was not an escape. The investigators followed the trail, and every forged document, every false reimbursement, every stolen donation became a nail in the coffin of his public image. I did not chase him. I did not answer his last frantic messages. He sent 3. The first, "You will regret this." The second, "You owe me after everything I gave you." The third, "Please, help me fix this." I left them all unread. Silence was the only answer that fit. Weeks passed. The board rebuilt with transparency. Donors returned cautiously because people want to believe in good more than they want to cling to anger. The volunteers stayed. The mission survived. It always had beneath his shadow. As for me, I took time. Long walks by the river. Quiet dinners with my mother. Conversations with Vanessa that felt less like apologies and more like 2 people learning how to see clearly. She testified when asked. She told the truth. That was her redemption, not mine to give. One evening, months later, I stood outside the same ballroom where it had all unraveled. New banners. New leadership. They invited me to speak. I hesitated at first, afraid it would feel like reopening a wound. But wounds heal best in air, not darkness. When I stepped onto the stage, the lights were bright, but they no longer burned. I looked out at the rows of faces, donors, volunteers, families who had been helped by the work. They were not here for scandal. They were here for survival, for hope. I did not plan to be here, I began. But life rarely gives us perfect timing. Sometimes it gives us betrayal. Sometimes it gives us loss. And sometimes, if we are willing to walk through fire, it gives us truth. Truth is not fragile. Lies are. That is why they break when you shine light on them. The room was silent, listening. I was called dramatic, emotional, naive, I continued. But the truth does not need permission to stand. And when someone tries to bury it, our choice is simple. We can suffocate with it, or we can dig until light breaks through. I chose light. I hope you do too. The applause rose slow, then strong. It did not feel like victory. Felt like release. That night, walking home, I thought of Damien one last time. I did not wonder where he was or what excuse he whispered into whatever shadows he had left. I thought only of the lesson. Betrayal is not the end of the story. Exposure is not even the end. The real ending is what you build after the ashes settle. And I built something he could never touch. My peace, my strength, my truth. So if you are listening, carrying your own secrets, your own hurt, wondering if you have the strength to face it, remember this. You do. Betrayal is a thief, but revenge, when it is truthful and just, gives you back more than what was stolen. This was my story. My revenge was not chaos. It was clarity. It was survival. And it was mine. If my story held you, if you felt the fire in it, stay with me. Subscribe, share, and come back for the next story. Because somewhere out there, another mask is cracking. And I will be here to show you what happens when lies finally meet the light.